If you were holding out for FSR 4 upscaling to be on your handheld, or maybe the next generation of handhelds like the Asus ROG Ally 2, whatever they got cooking up, or even with the Z2 Extreme chips that AMD's bringing out, you might want to think again. Well, we do have the full info now of FSR 4 upscaling and what it actually will entail, at least on the PC side of things for the GPUs. According to the Ars Technica article we have here, it says that AMD's FSR 4 upscaling exclusive to 90 series Radeon GPUs won't work on other cards. Now, why is that an upset? Well, because we were getting rumors from even AMD themselves and kind of murmurings from within that potentially FSR 4 might not be an RDNA 4 exclusive after all, and this is according to the Digital Trends article here. I'll have all my references linked below. Now, if you're wondering why you should care or if you don't care, well, as my mother always said, don't care was made to care. But if you want more of an example, we can see here from Digital Foundry's adventure to CES back in January when they were doing the AMD research project versus FSR 3.1, we can see that there's a lot more wiring effect, and that's kind of like the glitches and the stair-stepping type effects that you get here in the carpet. So if we go over to the right side, this is the research or FSR 4 as it were, and we can see that even a lot of that is cleaned up. It's not perfect, there is still some doubling of the images, but it's not as bad. So if you want more of like kind of a reference here, I'll just kind of move my head around as kind of like a little pointer. So if we're looking here, you can see that there is slight doubling in the glove here, but there's more so on the other side, and it is kind of frame by frame. I just kind of cherry picked these shots out of their video, and I'll leave their video link below. I'm not going to scrub through it and spoil everything, but it has been used in reference quite a lot in the past. So if we're looking at that and we're thinking, okay, well, that's whatever, it's not that bad, it's only on like a small screen, so it's not going to be that noticeable. Well, I did upload a video to the channel yesterday or late last night, and we can see here that even like, sure, Spider-Man 2, it's a Steam Deck verified game, blown up, it looks okay-ish still, but Monster Hunter Wild's recent release game, even on the smallest screens here, even in my viewfinder here through OBS, I can see that it is quite terrible looking. So if we were going to get FSR 4 into these games or into these consoles and handhelds and everything like that, and if it was going to be nicely backwards compatible, at least with the 6000, 7000 series of GPUs, that would have been a huge win. And if you're thinking, okay, well, the new chips coming out, the AI 300 series, the 8060S GPU, massive iGPU, and the new latest Hawk Point, Strix Point, all that, whatever. If you get confused by all that kind of wording and nomenclature and all these code names, well, we can see here there's a nice easy chart. So provided by videocards.com here, FSR 4, frame generation, native AA mode, ML based upscaling. So that's machine learn based upscaling, and that's the big upgraded upscaling tech that we're going to get here. So that's stuff that's what DLSS is based on, and XESS is actually based on too in their latest generations. So that's why DLSS had always been a lot better compared to FSR 4 because it was only using temporal upscaling. So the temporal upscaling is just using frames similar to what they're doing, but there's no machine learning or like AI aspect to enhance those generated frames or the upscaling technology to make the resolution from like 720p up to 4K to make it look a little bit better or a lot better in some cases when you're comparing DLSS to FSR 3, FSR 4. So we can see here in the compatibility it says 9000 series graphics and above, and that's what was confirmed in the Ars Technica article as well. So if we're going to talk about the AMD Z2 Extreme chips, which should be coming out in the next generation of handhelds, these have all been announced and what they are. But when we're talking about the Z2 series, there's actually like 3 different architectures at play here. So for the highest end, we're assuming it's going to be based on like the AI 300 series of chips. So that would be the Z2 Extreme. Now the Z2 is rumored to be based on basically an upgraded version of the 7840U. It's going to have like a 780M. Maybe we'll get an 880M, but I highly doubt that too because it's a different architecture entirely for that GPU class. So it's going to basically be a next step up for AMD 780M, like an AMD 780M Plus maybe, or potentially it could just be a rebranded like 8840U, 7840U, and that's just going to be their new kind of middle of the road one. Now I do have the Z2 Go chip in my Legion Go S, and that thing is just a dumpster fire because it is a custom chip, and it basically is the 6800U with the 680M, and that is in a cut down 4 CPU stack instead of the 8 core. I think it came in the 6800U. So when we're looking at the Z2 Extreme, we can see here that the number of CPU cores we get is 8, and then the graphics CU or core count is 16. So when we compare that over to the AI 370HX chip, AI9, we can see that we do get more cores, obviously, because it's the Ryzen 9 series. But when we're talking about the actual GPU count, we are still getting that same 16 core count. But when we talk about the CPU count, we're getting 12 cores on the HX370, and we're only getting 8 cores on the Z2 Extreme. So it potentially could just be a binned chip, like how they had done with the past with the 7840U, how they disabled like kind of all the AI cores and all that stuff that they didn't really need. So these could potentially be chips that were not good enough to be an HX370 or something, so they disabled some of the cores, but still kept that 890M GPU, because it does have the same number of core counts for the GPU. So if we do go look at the AI9 365, even that is a 10-core CPU, but that comes with the 880M. And the 880M GPU, we can see here, it does only have 12 cores. So that's not a match for match of what they've released already about the Z2 Extreme. So going finally, or not finally, there's a couple more. Going to the Z2 chip though, we can see that the Z2 has 8 cores, so that's the same as the Z2 Extreme. But when we go to graphics capabilities, we see it has a 12 core count. So that is matching with the AI 365 series, but we know that it's a different architecture entirely. So if we pull up the 8840U, then we can see that the actual core count of the CPU is the same at 8 CPU cores. And then if we go down to graphics capabilities, we see that there is a 12-core GPU count, which is essentially a match for match of the Z2 and the 8840U. So again, I'm probably speculating, and there's a good amount of evidence even just provided through what we know of the AMD CU counts and everything through what they've released. I'm assuming that the Z2 will just be an 8840U. The Z2 Go, we already know, is like a specialized 6800U, and then the Z2 Extreme is going to be, or most likely be, cut down or binned HX370 chip. And then it's going to retain that 890M iGPU, but it's going to have less CPU cores because it doesn't need it in the handheld form factor. But we did see with the Z2 Go chip already, because they cut that down to 4 CPU cores, that actually did limit performance significantly. Now, if we go to the 8060S, which is in their newest RDNA 3.5 architecture, it's got the Strix Halo series here. That is still not RDNA 4 either. So if you're thinking you're going to go buy a Z13 Flow or a new laptop that had one of these chips with it that is claimed to be beating or matching a 4070, 4060 laptop GPU, you might want to rethink that as well, because you're not getting the machine learning based upscaling in that you would be getting on a dedicated NVIDIA graphics card. So what we do have to look forward to in the next little bit with handhelds though potentially is AMD Fluid Motion Frames 2.1. And if we see here, provided by videocards.com, there is leaks and rumors of AMD working on AFMF 2.1. Now, they did release the 2.0 version not that long ago, which did kind of make it perform a little bit better, make it a little bit easier to work out with. But the 2.1 update, I'm hoping, will actually be more optimized and make it more of a just on and off type experience. You don't need to do all the black magic witchcraft type stuff in the background to do the borderless or full scale game mode. And if the game doesn't fully support that type of game window mode that you need for the fluid motion frames, it just becomes a big mess and a big pain in the butt when you're trying to turn it on and just play the game simply. So hopefully with 2.1 it just becomes more of like a toggleable thing, and it's okay, you know it's going to be on, you know it's going to be working. And a big thing that we need and hopefully can get is being able to get your FPS outputs through other means. So when we're talking about getting your FPS outputs, currently the only way you can do it with fluid motion frames is if you use their actual in-base frame counter, which updates pretty slow. It's not the greatest. You can't customize it that much, at least in terms of like being able to put stuff where you want to. There is a decent amount of information, but I know a lot of people would just rather use RTSS, hardware info, things like that. So right now you can't use those types of FPS meters or stats meters when you're playing your games with fluid motion frames on, because it just won't allow it, and it'll actually turn fluid motion frames off. Even when you're using things like the Asus ROG Ally Armory Crate or the Lenovo Legion Go Space and using those FPS counters, you will not be able to get fluid motion frame output through those either, which is a huge pain in the butt. So, what are we looking for the future? In my opinion, if you were going to be possibly buying a Z2 Extreme chip on the basis that, okay, hopefully you're going to be getting the machine learning based upscaling stuff because it's RDNA 3.5, sorry to break it to you, you're not getting it at that. You're not getting it at the 8060S. You're not getting it on any of these. It won't be until probably next year, late this year, like December, when the new kind of next-gen APUs start coming out from these laptop makers, that we'll start seeing RDNA 4 in an iGPU that isn't a crazy 40 core count 8060S style GPU. We'll still probably get something like that, but we'll be getting the next step up for the AI 400 series, let's say, and then that will include RDNA 4 on the iGPU level, and then we'll hopefully be able to get machine learn based upscaling, and hopefully all those features will trickle down to the AMD Z series of chips, but we don't know if they're going to be continuing it on to the Z3. I assume they probably would, because it's like their mainstay kind of handheld based style of APU, and it's probably an easy sell for them to be binning these cut down chips that they weren't able to sell as a higher end CPU to a laptop manufacturer, and then just kind of back sell it to a handheld manufacturer at a cheaper price or something and get it in more hands. So, let me know what everyone thinks. Are you excited for FSR 4? Are you disappointed that you're not going to be able to use FSR 4 machine learn based upscaling on your handhelds, at least not until probably next year? Let me know what you're all thinking in the comments. And as always, I hope you all have a great day.